Hi everyone. I am back after a hiatus from these talks and ready to chat with more Women Who Vagabond. If you're just checking out the series now, I think this is episode 7, and I'm really excited to welcome on my guest today, Tasha, who I'm going to bring on right now and let her introduce herself. Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm excited that we finally made this happen because I've had some trouble with scheduling the last few weeks.
There's so many things that have been coming up. There's been flooding here, which is crazy.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yep.
From rain.
Well, gosh, I mean, there's just been a lot of rain, but I also think a reservoir or something spilled over. So yeah, so there's just been a lot of flooding, a lot of spotty internet. So I'm really excited that everything's working well today.
Me too. Tasha, do you want to introduce yourself and share a little bit about who you are, especially who you are as a traveler
Of
and a
course.
woman who does badass things on her own?
Thank you. So, I'm an empowerment coach on the island of Maui, and I teach empowerment self-defense as well. For me, when it comes to traveling, I really love to do day traveling and, sort of mini road trips and stuff like that. I do a lot of that when I'm trying to um, find different answers and seek some do a little introspection there and kind of assess where I'm at in my life. I love going out on my own and really, we're back. Yeah, but really taking some extra time to just take care of myself and find some different avenues when it comes to my life because I don't necessarily live like a straight and narrow 9 to 5. That's not really me, and I think that that's probably resonates with you as well. And so
Hmm.
just making sure that I'm being authentic to myself, being true to myself whenever I'm living life and making decisions about my business or what I'm doing in my relationships, I really want to make sure that I'm bringing my full self.
Hmm. Can we talk about, I like that you brought up traveler adventure as self-care. That's a
Woo!
really good sort of perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Perspective, and I don't think that's really come up on any of these chats. So I'd love for you to share more about that. Like, how is travel self-care for you?
So, for me, travel, it's really just it's an exploration of self. So, a lot of times when it comes to um, my travels, I've done major trips after huge things have happened in my life.
Mhm.
I ended up doing a lot of solo trips. I used to run a nonprofit back in Washington State, and the longest relationship before the relationship that I'm in now, which is the longest relationship in my life. Um, that relationship before, when it had ended, I told the nonprofit, I was like, you know what, I'm no longer available on weekends. I'm not available to take your text messages at 11 p.m. or your emails or all of this other stuff over the weekend. I'm going to be gone. I won't be available. And so I just went on Groupon and I started getting um, all of these places to just go, these hotels and stuff like that, sightseeing, restaurants, everything. I wanted to make an event, but I also wanted to do it on a budget because I no longer was doing stuff with my partner. It was just me. And
Mhm.
so I thought that it was really important as I was doing this and going through this process to be very mindful about it because I think that when we do go through really drastic changes in our lives, the initial thought is like, balls to the wall. Let's go crazy. And when that relationship ended, I was turning 30 that year, and it was just like, okay, you're not 21 anymore. Like, I used to do these really awesome day trips with my girlfriends where we would we would go to Safeway, and it's like, what snacks do we want? I'm sure everyone thought we were like high as kites. But really, I was just like, I just wanted Totino's pizza and a microwave. That's like all I want with my life. But we would just go to all these different places, and I would say left or right in the car, and we would end up in a different state by the end of it, and it would just be so much fun. But the big trip after my last relationship ended, I really just wanted to be on my own. I really wanted to know that I could be independent. Um, and I thought that I really needed to take care of myself more because I had spent so much time serving my community with my nonprofit, um, being a supportive partner and girlfriend, all of the things that I thought I was supposed to do in a relationship that I realized, I was not winning. I was losing in this battle against myself to try and give myself the best life. And what is the best life really? And so I wanted to find it. And that didn't mean me, I didn't have to go to a million different places in order to do that. But me going on road trips to different areas of Washington State. I traveled all over Washington, and I have these time lapse videos and all these other things. I took pictures at every restaurant. I did that really annoying thing that people do where they take pictures of their food for Instagram all the time. Total foodie. I did that. So there was that. I also decided I needed something more. So I booked a trip to New York, and I booked a trip to Washington, D.C., and I started doing interviews with women because I was like, you know what, there's got to be some other women who have this figured out. you
I
know,
don't know. I think we're all just figuring it out.
yeah. So I started interviewing all these women, and I never published it. I have all these interviews, and I called it Women Making History Now. And so I interviewed this woman. It was actually one of my family friends, and she's a native healer from the Stolo Nation. And that was the last interview she had before she passed away. But she had been on like Oprah and all this other stuff, and she had traveled all over the United States and Canada doing healing work and healing cancer and stuff like that with my mom. And so it was amazing to just interview her. I got to interview a best-selling author in New York um, who did the tapping solution for losing weight or stuff like that. And then got to interview like an African dancer and a poet. And yeah, and so it was just a great opportunity for me to go all over and have this project and have a mission. And when I was in New York, the at first I was taking cabs, and I was like, wow, cabs are extremely expensive. I think I'm going to walk. And they're like, what? Are you crazy? And I'm like, no, I'm gonna walk. And so I would walk like 50 blocks or something, and people would think I was nuts, but then that's how I'd find the good food. And I would be able to do all of this other stuff. And I realized I didn't really have a lot of great, like street smart skills. And so I was working on that, of just being more aware. And because I had a martial arts background, but then I was like, okay, this is a completely different beast in New York. Downtown Manhattan, all this other stuff.
I love walking as a form of transport. Like walking around cities, it's the best way to find the food, the like cute cafes, the art, the little
Boutiques. That was fun.
boutiques, the weird little corners that you would never find if you were just getting from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Uh, you So something that caught my attention a little while ago about like wanting to figure out what the best way to live was.
Yeah.
Is that and I think that's a really interesting way of phrasing it, and I'm curious in retrospect if you feel like you found any answers that you want to share.
Well, yes. So I realized that I wasn't serving myself running this nonprofit, making half of what people normally make in that position. I was doing really great work, but I wasn't serving myself. And so many times, I think all of us are about a cause and we want to just give ourselves completely. And, and it's like, oh, I'll do it for free. I'll do it for nothing. I'll do it for very little. But I realized in that process that I wasn't taking care of myself. I didn't have the kind of money where I was able to support myself or support my needs. And so going on those trips, I was able to really do a lot of introspection and realize that I keep on having this alarm that's going off that's reminding me that I'm supposed to go live at a certain time, but then it keeps on going.
You're
um,
like, I know, I'm live right
I'm like, I'm
now.
here. I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. But yeah, so what I realized is that in that process, that whole introspection, all of the crazy trips, me going, all over, um, I really learned that I was fighting for myself in that time. I was giving to myself the experiences that I needed and I craved. Um, and I needed to do more of that. I needed to honor myself more. I was in a partnership for my business, and that wasn't serving me either, even though I loved my mission and I loved reaching girls and doing programming. My business partner and I did not have the same morals or the same ideals when it came to how we treat other people or how life is supposed to be or our expectations of each other. And so those trips gave me the insight that I needed in order to walk away from her, in order to walk away from the nonprofit and say, this is not what I need. I remember the day that I decided to walk away from my nonprofit. I had actually had my niece over, and she walked up and she wanted to play with me. And she was like, "Yeah, come on. I really want to see you." And I said, "Honey, I have a meeting." And she looked at me and she pointed, this little girl said, "You're always in meetings. You never have time for me." And I just
Um,
walked into to meet with the board president, and I was like crying, and he was going, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I'm a bad aunt." And I was like, I can't keep doing this to myself. Um, and yeah, and so I knew all those trips basically gave me the insight that I knew I wasn't happy. I needed to find something else. I had already started dating my partner that year. So I dated him literally after my last trip. I met him like a week later, and I was so much. I was like, no, we're not going to be together. You're too young. I'm not interested. I don't want to see anyone. I'm trying to figure my own life out. And he was, and it was just sort of like second date, like, my mom's coming. I'd love for you to meet her. I'm like, nope, 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 nope. Goodbye. But like that was just this wonderful surprise to have. And I think that a lot of times when we're willing to give up the things that we think matter most to us, other things come. And so, we started dating, and a year and 3 months in, he asked me to go on an adventure and move to Maui with him. So, like I think that is the piece where it's not just about this relationship, it's about me. What did I need to find my happiness? And I was so stuck in the roles. like, what is the role that women have to play? Oh, we have to, we have to do this certain thing. We should be married by this time. We should have this many kids. Um, and I really just knew that that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted a life with adventure. I wanted to fall in love in unexpected ways. I wanted to have someone, show up for me and really be there. But I also wanted to show up for myself. And I think that was the most important piece that I could have learned from my solo traveling is just that. And the fact is that for me, I'm still solo traveling. I'm just solo traveling right now all over an island.
Amazing.
Where, yeah, yeah.
So, okay, I want to ask you two things. I'm trying to decide what to ask first. I guess I'm curious because you're in partnership and you continue to identify and move as a solo traveler. So how do you navigate that? And do you have any advice for women who are like, oh, well, I can't be a solo traveler because married or because I have a partner or because I have kids? How do you like maintain that solo element in your life within partnership?
Well, each of us are extremely independent. I run my business. My business is my baby. Like that's something that really does come first. My family comes first as well, so it's like a nice balance and everything. But what I've found is that if you're not serving yourself, if you're not giving yourself that solo time, you're not able to show up fully and completely in a partnership. And so for me, I have to have my own experiences so that I can come back and be like, look, oh my God, I had this amazing day. I went here, here, and here. I did, like I went up a cliff and jumped into a waterfall. Like those are things that I can't say to him if I'm doing them with him. It's like, oh yeah, that thing that we did together today, like that was really great. Like and there's opportunities for people out there to do the adventure with their partner. Like you'll get to do that. We went to the crater together. By far it was like the best Valentine's Day of my life. But the worst was when I started my period in fifth grade. But like, it's like one of those situations. So just understanding that if you really want to show up in life, show up in your job, show up for your family and your friends and your kids if you have kids, um, just carve out that time. Make sure that you are getting that solo time because you'll be able to reset. You'll be able to think about things with clarity. Sometimes we are so in it. We are so stuck in like the day to day, the grind, the family stuff, the relationship things, being a good wife or a good partner or a good, whatever. That we forget ourselves. Like we completely forget who's that person when you look in the mirror. Do you recognize them anymore? Because if you don't, then there's a huge problem. And so for me, I love taking that extra time to go out, go away, really get some introspection because like if I'm in it and I'm like, oh no, I can't do any solo traveling anymore because I have this partner. Well, I mean, what are we just going to hold our hands through everything? Like that's not how that works. One of you
Yeah.
dies before the other, unless if it's like a car crash or something along those lines, or like a tsunami, natural disaster. So you have to live with yourself for the rest of your life. Nobody else can say that. Nobody else has to live with you. So like if you are serving yourself to your higher good, then part of that is really figuring out who the hell you are. Like I didn't know about foods or music or things that I liked. I was so caught up in like the relationship aspects.
that resonates so much about like your, and I've thought about this before, like the relationship, the only relationship you will have for your entire life is the relationship you have with yourself.
Yes.
So it better be a good one. And like the only person you're with 100% of the time is
The,
yourself. So hopefully you enjoy your company.
the alarm. Yeah. The goddamn alarm. Um, yeah. So, I mean, it's true. You have to live with yourself for the rest of your life. And instead of like a good one, make it a great relationship. Like,
Hmm.
have sexy time with yourself. I get dressed up all the time. I'm like walking around in a kimono. I do reels all the time. My boyfriend's like, "Why are you dancing again alone on like your reel?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm just trying to have fun." It's the best, you know? Um, but I think that you exploring the stuff that you love, like let's say just for whoever is out there who has obligations, kids, family, maybe you're taking care of a loved one or something along those lines. Just take 2 seconds to get out of that. If there was no one else left in the world that you cared about, there was just you, what would you do for yourself to make yourself happy? It's like we are so dependent and codependent on these other people for our happiness. And we have to know that, no matter what, we have ourselves. And so many times we lose ourselves in a relationship or a job or the kid or kids or family. And that can be a huge detriment. And I think that so many people, especially right now with COVID and everything else that's going on in the world, they're trying to really stick like glue to their loved ones because it's scary out there. But realizing that you still have a life, you still have, you still have yourself that you have to serve. I've definitely had like my weeks where it's like, oh, I'm trying to do everything for everybody else, and my hair is all matted, and I'm like a hot mess. I'm going, God, when did I eat? I think it was
Mm.
like 2 days ago. Like, oh, what was that? I'm going, oh God, that's not healthy. That's not right. And so, yeah. So I think if you are trying to figure that out, like taking at least an hour to just sit with yourself and figure out what are the things that you love to do, reading, writing, journaling, dancing in reels, just just the little things.
I love it. And having adventures. The other thing I would love to hear a little bit more from you about is this idea. I'm stealing this term from someone, and I can't remember who the author is, but this idea of micro adventures, where
Hmm.
a big adventure doesn't have to be a year-long sabbatical. You don't have to leave the country. You don't have to leave the state. You don't have to leave your city or island. And it's something I say a lot, that people are like, well, I don't trust you because you've been traveling for 10 years, so that's easy for you to say. But but I love that you have that perspective where you've had so many adventures, in one day or in one weekend, and I think that's really accessible to people. So I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I started doing these little mini adventures where I I really as a teenager, I was in a tiny town. I grew up in this tiny boat town. It was an artsy town. It was really pretty, and I tried to find different routes because everything was the same. I would go on the same route to school. I would go on the same route home. I would, so then I'd suddenly like, well, what if I take this road? And then I'm like, oh, I'm lost. That's okay. It's eventually going to lead to one of the same roads that I know of. And I was so bored. And I just remember, um, having those moments. And so then I was going through a lot with my life in my early 20s. I had been through a really abusive relationship, and I realized, like, again, I had someone who was a lot older than me who I had been dating. They ordered food for me. They told me, like I shouldn't be around my family. They would call my family if I was gone. They wanted to know exactly where I was. It was a really, I mean, I felt stifled. I felt suffocated when I was finally able to walk away from that relationship. I took trips. Oh, good. Just making sure. I was like, oh my God, it's another, it's gonna stop. But that was just a notification. That's nice. Um, but I was like, oh my God, I have no idea what I want. I don't know what makes me happy. And, it was just this really sad moment where I was looking at myself and I had no clue who I was or what I was doing in my life. And I got in the car and I drove and I just drove and kept on driving. And I ended up at the top of Mount Rainier. I was at the top of a mountain. There was snow. Like I was looking out and it was so quiet. I mean, it was just the most beautiful thing. And I remember looking around and saying, God, I needed this. Like I needed to be at the top of a mountain where no one else is. And I needed to be able to be alone and know that I was going to be okay. Like I was going to be okay if I had to figure out what my own meal was going to be. Like I was going to be okay if I was trying to figure out and failing at what kind of music I liked because this person liked country music and I was not much of a fan, but I learned to love it. Like that was just those things that you do when you're so stuck in a relationship and you think this is the person you're supposed to spend the rest of your life with. And it's like, no, I need to spend the rest of my life with myself. Like, who the hell is that? Who does she like? What kind of music does she like? What foods does she like? Like, I had to figure out what kind of eggs. It was like, there's a million ways to make eggs. I love hollandaise sauce. That I had to figure out on my own. So me just going on these trips, I realized I would just get in the car and I'd start going. And then suddenly, one day I had a friend who was like, I want to go on one of these adventures. This sounds really cool. So then you get to go with your friends and then it's a fun adventure. But I grew up. That's how I grew up, is those experiences. Me figuring out, like, imagine going to Washington, D.C. and DuPont Square. I remember there was this huge, it was like a monsoon. There was so much rain. Everybody came running in. I was the only one who went and ran out. I was like in the middle of the park dancing around in this red and white striped dress. And I'm like twirling and I'm just letting the rain pelt me in the face. And I was completely soaked. And it was one of the best moments of my life. I had so much clarity. So,
Wow, that's beautiful.
yeah. But you can have these moments. You can schedule them. Like, I know that sounds so grown up and weird, but it's like,
But you can.
you can do weekends and stuff like that where it's like, okay, I need you to take care of the kids. If somebody has a problem with that, and you're going through a mental health issue or something else, yeah, your mental health takes precedence because you're not going to be fully there if you aren't able to serve yourself. So tell them you need it, you know?
Tasha, I think we're past time,
Oh,
but is there any last thoughts that you want to share or I like to close with any advice for women especially who want to just travel solo or adventure solo or just live that experience of self-discovery and aren't sure where to start. What would you say to them?
baby steps, get out a map, get in the car. You have these amazing spots, and part of it is just being willing to take that first step and explore. But you deserve it. You deserve to have everything you want in this life, and you are worth the time and the energy that it takes to put in to go and find your own adventure, because you deserve to have a solo adventure.
I love that. Tasha, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I love your perspective and your stories, and I'm really excited to share them
Thank you.
with
You rock. And I love your
many
book.
others. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So have a great
And thank
one.
you to everyone who tuned in and everyone who watches later. And you can find Tasha came in today from her self-defense project, Elle Live Action, which we didn't even talk about, but there will be a link to that profile in the description of this video, so go check it out as well.
Sweet. Aloha.
Thank you.